Hey guys, how you doing? You guys are doing well. Thank you for coming. Let's take a look here. What do we got? Cool to see people from everywhere. Awesome. Fantastic. Nice. All right, cool. So let me explain a little bit about what we're going to do today, because we have a different type of Sunday class. We have a special guest today. This is Professor Magno Gama. He's an amazing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, someone I feel very lucky to call a friend. And he also agreed today to give a little introduction into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for us old school Kung Fu peeps. So what he's going to do today is just basically give an introduction into, what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is about, and also how, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner might try to, take you to the ground and fold you up and tie you in knots and all that kind of stuff, using me as his willing participant. So he's just going to go through it. Obviously, you guys can sit and watch, or you can participate, especially if you have a partner. Up to you. You can get whatever you want out of it. Towards the end of class, if you guys have any questions, you can throw them in the chat, and then we'll try to leave like maybe 5 or 10 minutes, maybe towards the end, to take any questions and things like that if you guys have some. And cool. Yes, awesome. All right, so without further ado, we have Professor Magno here. So,
hi guys, how are you? Again, my name is Professor Magno. I've been training with Renzo Gracie for quite some time now. I'm 39, and I've been training with him since I'm 17. So I spent quite some time training Jiu-Jitsu, but most of it I was actually paying attention to beginners. That was one of the things that my professor liked a lot. He saw how patient I was and how I had the time to sit down, the patience to sit down with people and break down how the art of Jiu-Jitsu worked. So it got to a point where he himself said, listen, this is the only guy that will take care of the beginners. Mainly due to my patience of sitting and explaining things very slowly, and again, taking my time. So today, we're gonna break down to you guys how Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu works, okay? And Jiu-Jitsu works to a certain extent in a way when you're going against another grappler, but then it works differently when you're going against a stand-up fighter. And the thing here is to show you guys, for example, if I had to fight a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy, what should I expect? If I'm dealing with a grappler, let's put it that way, in general, a grappler, what should be the main things that I should be worried about, okay? The first thing is this. For example, I want to start off by saying that the only reason why I got into martial arts and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was because of Bruce Lee. I was a huge fan of Bruce Lee. I had posters, I had magazines all over my house. So this is the guy that actually got me into martial arts. After watching one of his first movies, I became a sick fanatic that my room would have posters literally on the ceiling of Bruce Lee. I had everything about Bruce Lee. I was a big fan of him. So he was the guy that actually motivated me to do martial arts. I started with Taekwondo, and then I jumped into Jiu-Jitsu. And when I got into Jiu-Jitsu, for me, it was a huge wake-up call, because I got taken down by this computer nerd friend of ours that would only sit around and watch us fight, would never, ever fight. One day that nobody was there, he said, Magno, I'll train with you. And that was the best day of my life. This guy took me down and I threw my first fancy Taekwondo kick. He went under, took me down, got to my back and put a choke. And I was like, okay, it has to be luck. I'm way better than this guy. There's no way that this guy that never trains did this to me. Let's do it again. This time I'm like, I'm going to get him in the stomach with a spinning kick, and I'm going to knock the wind out of this guy at first, because I'm not going to let him do this again. I throw another kick. This guy takes me down the same fashion, puts me in the armbar. And he puts me in the armbar, and I say, stop. What is this? What kind of martial art is this? Because I never seen grappling before. And the beauty of Jiu-Jitsu is how there's no throwing punches or kicks. All we're going to be working with will be anatomical weaknesses in the human body. And that's going to be broken down into 3 basic steps. So when we talk about Jiu-Jitsu, we're going to be talking about 3 basic parts. Comes the part of taking someone down, because if he's a stand-up fighter, of course, as a Jiu-Jitsu guy, as a grappler, I want to take the match to the floor. I don't want to exchange punches or kicks with a Kung Fu guy, a guy who's expert in standing. So the first thing I want to do is take you out of your comfort zone. I want to come in. I will keep you the distance away from you as much as I can until I can close that distance, take you down, and that's how everything starts. Once I put you on the ground, you're on my playground. You're on my office. That's where I know how to operate best. By paying attention to the weakest things that psychologically someone can do as they grapple. We capitalize on the idea that by not knowing anything about grappling, you're gonna make my life so much easier. It's gonna be an easy day. So today we're gonna break those things down, okay? So the three most important and basic parts of jiu-jitsu. What's the simplest way I can break grappling down? Take your partner down by understanding wrestling and judo. Once you take them down, you get to a dominant position. I will introduce you the 4 most basic dominant positions we have in jiu-jitsu. And the third and final, how to properly submit your opponent without actually killing him. You know how to throw a punch, you know how to throw a kick, but you know that depending on the angle and how hard you kick me in the head, you could kill me. So therefore, you have to control what you're doing so you actually don't kill someone. In jiu-jitsu, is the same. When we're applying chokes to the neck, or when we're doing chokes and we're applying pressure to the neck, we always have to be super careful on how you're doing, because there's multiple ways in which you can hurt someone very badly. So again, we're gonna break it down to 3 parts. Take your partner down, get a dominant position, which there will be 4. I will be about to introduce you those, and then properly submit your partner, okay? Now, there's do's and don'ts of jiu-jitsu. You're gonna be in certain positions that if you listen to your natural reaction, you're gonna get into trouble. You're gonna have to know the basic rules of grappling so you don't afford to give this guy a match in your first minute of scrambling with this guy, okay? Let's start off by doing the takedown first. So let me see if we get the distance right. There you go, perfect. So now, place your left leg forward. Let's say my opponent has his left leg forward as he stands, and so will I have mine. Now, I wanna take this guy down. One thing is this, the first thing that I gotta make sure is that as I'm gonna take this guy down, I don't expose myself to a knee to the face. Now, imagine that I'm standing here. That's his back leg right there. If you do this, the math, the speed of my head going forward and the speed of his knee coming in, that would be a knockout or a broken face. To start off with, even how you're gonna take the guy down, you have to make sure that his striking is not gonna be able to stop you from doing your job. So now, he's gonna switch his stance. Switch your stance. Now he has the right leg forward. When he has the right leg forward, and I have my right leg forward, I'm gonna make sure that my head will not go to the front of his body. To the front of the person's body, they can punch you, they can knee you in the face, so you're exposed when you go here. So in other words, I want his head to come towards the back where I can't strike you. You don't have to be a boxer, you don't have to be a professional fighter to know that this little punch back here doesn't work. Or this one. So what I'm doing here is this. As I'm standing with my partner, the first thing that I want to do is to make sure that his hands are going to come up. Okay? So he's not ready to punch me or to grab me for a guillotine or anything. So I take sort of a punch. I get my hands very close to his face because all I need him to do is blink. You blink for a second and I'm right in. Notice how my head is not exposed to being punched or knee on the face because I came to the outside of his body. Switch your base for a second. If my head doesn't go on the outside and it goes on the inside, now I'm getting hit, punched, and kicked. So we're gonna make sure of one thing. If my partner has the left leg forward, I kick my left leg forward. My partner puts his right leg forward, I'm gonna place my right leg forward to match and make it easier for me to penetrate his base. I'm worried about his hands and I'm worried about his legs. So what I do is this, I distract the legs by faking a punch so his hands come up. Naturally, everyone will do that. And by the time he does that, I'm low enough close to his hip. Both of my hands are around the knees because in order to get this guy off balance, I gotta narrow his base. If I can hug his leg and shake him a little bit, he's gonna fall. So the first thing when I'm standing with someone, of course, I'm sure you guys already know that, hands up, protecting your face and so. Now, I don't want to be close enough where this guy can strike me. So I'm going to stay away. I'm always keeping this guy away. And whenever I'm ready to go, I'm going to go on in. The next, you know, You penetrate it, you have one hand behind the knee, the second one behind the knee. I'm going to squeeze these knees together, and I take this guy down. And that's when everything starts. So as you can tell, at one point we are worried about how am I going to penetrate my opponent's defense without being struck, without being hit, without being punched or kicked. Those are the basic rules that are going to come out. For example, I can have a situation where if my opponent gets a little too close in, I close in and I stay nice and tight. If you see, I brought my head to his chest. I was able to even hug one of his arms. Now, when you're so close to your opponent, these punches becomes very limited. I can take a few of those until I can take you down, and then I get a dominant position, and then I pay back. I'm very calm. I take my time when I'm doing these things. So if I'm standing over here, I'm going to go for my double leg takedown. First thing, what I got to make sure is that I don't just run towards his legs because he can knee me in the face. He can punch me. I need to distract him from the idea that I want to take him down. As a stand-up fighter, his nervous system has been trained that anytime I do anything, his hands are already coming up to defend, to strike back, to do his thing. So I'm either going to stay too far or I'm going to be too close where he's striking. It's going to be, it won't be efficient. And after that, I take a little step right behind the leg and I'm taking this guy down. And now his striking basically will be useless because he's just a stand-up fighter. It's the same thing that will happen to a jiu-jitsu guy when he gets to face the guy who stands up and doesn't let him it doesn't allow him to be taken down. Now the jiu-jitsu guy who only knows jiu-jitsu is in a really bad situation. This guy knows my art and it doesn't allow me to take him down. Since I didn't do striking, now this guy is gonna basically kick my butt due to my lack of understanding of the standing part. So as we always say, the best fighter is the guy who's more well-rounded. He knows standing, he knows on the ground, he knows wrestling, he knows submission, he knows boxing, he knows kicking, everything. In that case, for example, in jiu-jitsu, we have different ways of taking people down. I can take them down because I shot in for my double leg takedown, or because this guy came from behind. So for an instance, if someone comes from behind and holds, one of the first things I'm gonna do is this. I'm gonna take a wide step to the side, as you can see. Because when I choose a side, I step, I turn my hip towards my opponent, and watch my forward leg, the leg with the knee pad, as a matter of fact. It's going right behind them, look. Now, this guy's going down. So we're gonna have multiple ways on how to take someone down. From wearing a uniform, which is gonna be super useful, just like someone wears a leather jacket, a North Face jacket, that can easily be used against you, anything that you're wearing. So the takedowns can be differentiated with the gi and no gi. Both takedowns, understanding the science of balance and how to get someone off balance and to the ground where I can get my grappling submission started. So for striking, again, I want to make sure that my hands are always protecting, keeping this guy away. And whenever I shoot for a leg, to not just run into it, because he's going to be expecting that. So I'm going to pick a few things. Maybe I'm here, I'll take a hit, come back, and then I take a punch, and the next thing you know, again, there has to be a pre-set up for your takedown. No one stops in front of someone and just runs into it, because the other guy's going to stop you. So, as we say, I have to be careful on where I place my head. For an instance, if I go for a single leg takedown and my head goes on the outside now this guy gets a guillotine, look. And I get to be submitted. He can throw me backwards and land on top. Well, Professor Magno, but on the double leg, the head goes outside. Exactly, on the double leg. On the single leg, the procedures change. Therefore, my head goes on the inside now. And now I'm not exposing anything. I sit on his hip. I put him down. He barely fell down. I grab his foot. I sit back. And now we have a straight foot lock. And we can have a broken foot. Now, how is this guy going to stand up and fight again? So the first chance I had on taking him down, I saw a little leg extended. And I took that.
So takedowns can come in many different forms and shapes, from someone coming from the side, from the back, from the front, in numerous different ways on how to take. But the first stage is how to safely approach your opponent, close the distance, make sure you're fighting his stance properly so you don't get strike hit, and then you properly take this guy down. By using two different arts, wrestling and judo. So my whole life, I was learning judo and wrestling every single day. And when you take the gi off, it's not like, oh, now I only do judo, wrestling. No. With the gi on, I do judo and wrestling. Without the gi on, I do judo and wrestling. Those two arts, they combine, they complete each other. So when it comes to jiu-jitsu, the first step is how to properly approach your opponent without the risk of getting hit. Take them down properly so you don't land on a submission or on a position where you can get strike. Once you take them down, then starts part number 2 of jiu-jitsu. Part number 2, and you have to work with the order. I take my partner down by using wrestling and judo. Second part, I gain a dominant position. Beautiful, dominant position. How many dominant positions we have in jiu-jitsu? We have a few, but if we want to talk about, especially for people who are being introduced to jiu-jitsu, we're going to talk about the 4 most basic positions. 4 most basic positions in jiu-jitsu. I start with my partner standing, okay? If I went into a clinch, right? No, I got into a clinch, and now I'm gonna go for a takedown. I'm gonna wrap my hand right around his neck. I'll hold his lat muscle. My body position allows me to come in with my hip, pick this guy up, throw him down. The second I throw him down, I have an arm over here trapped that I could have easily sat down and submitted the guy. That's not the case right now because I just took my partner down and I don't want to submit him right away because I need to introduce you the dominant positions. So I take my partner down. I'm not going to rush into a submission. Now I need to hold this guy down. Start off with, when I place someone on the ground and his back is flat on the floor, that limits my opponent from moving. If he turns on his side, he's in a much better position to fight me off now, unlike when he's flat. So when I take him down, first thing, solar plexus to solar plexus, one hand under the head, one hand under the arm. That prevents my opponent from turning. He can't turn into me, he can't turn away. If he tries to turn away, which it's a very natural thing, but the worst thing you can do in jiu-jitsu, when someone starts grabbing you, and I used to be claustrophobic before I trained jiu-jitsu. So people would start grabbing me, I'm like, Jesus, I can't breathe, you know? My brother, as a matter of fact, is the one to be blamed because he used to put me in cart box and close me inside the cart box. And I couldn't breathe, so I went crazy. Like anything around my neck, I would panic. I start training jiu-jitsu and people are choking me, and I see myself not happy and trying to get out. And that's how I actually beat the claustrophobic feeling of not being able to breathe. By doing jiu-jitsu, people trying to choke me, and I'm trying to survive until I can't anymore. So with that, the fear completely went away. But that's something that happens to everybody. Anyone that does jiu-jitsu for the first time will say, it is a very claustrophobic feeling. Because the second I get in, I close all the distance. I come so close to your upper body that my shoulder goes right on the guy's face and he can't turn. Now, every time, it doesn't fail. When I take someone down, especially if they don't know jiu-jitsu, I take them down and I go, hey, listen, let's say right before you came to this class, you were walking up the street, someone took you down and landed on this position. How would you respond? And the first things that I get is the guy raises the hand and goes, oh, I'll punch you in the face. And I go, oh, very kind of you. But let's get back there, and I'm here. Your back is against the ground. Imagine throwing a punch when my face is close to you, and your arm doesn't have mobility. So when you take your arm out and you start striking, all you're going to do is give that arm to the guy to come over, lock, and now he has the power to dislocate your shoulder. Soft tissues, bones, everything gets torn apart. All I have to do is to lift that elbow, he tapped out, I'll let go. So as you can see, by not knowing how to properly react to this situation, he actually exposes himself. And then I tell the guy, listen, I'll get you into this dominant position again. Let's make believe you're coming for your second class and the same guy takes you down again, right? So you know that this time you cannot try to punch him. What would you do? And then people go as if they always do. Yeah, I'm gonna bench press this guy. I'm gonna push, but when you do, he pushes the arm out of the way. By the view that you probably have, you can't see it, but my left bicep is blocking his right carotid artery. So the flow of oxygen blood supply cells will not be going to his brain. Not on the right side. So I have my left bicep on his right side. Now, to fully stop the flow of blood to his brain, I need to stop the second one. But when he pushes against me, that itself will be pushed against his neck. I tap on that arm, his own shoulder moves against the second carotid artery. I bring my head in to lock it, palm to palm. I mount my opponent. I grab my bicep and then very gently, because if I squeeze his neck very hard over here, you can hurt the guy's neck. So I just want to squeeze the sides, and then he taps, without bringing any pain whatsoever or hurting the guy's neck. So as you can see, we have 4 different positions. I can take my partner down and get to the side control, as well as maybe my partner comes in, or the other fighter, and takes me down. Maybe he punched me and came on top of me. Now, how do I fight when I'm the bottom guy? Let me see if I can get a very good angle. Come over here. Yes. So as you can tell, for example, let's assume I'm a girl. This guy is an attacker. Where would he want to be? In between the legs. That's how it always happens. But he doesn't know that this girl knows jiu-jitsu, and that position that for him would be the best position is actually the worst. Introducing the guard. When someone's in between my leg, independent of what he wants to do, when someone's in between my guard, if he tries to choke me with both hands, I'm going to grab both wrists, both of my legs are going to come around the head, and I have his elbows now. If I pull his wrist out, I'm going to break both of his elbows. Probably exposed fracture as I pull back this way. That's one, because he was trying to choke me. But a lot of the times, they hold on the victim's hands. So when he holds your hand and push down, you step on the guy's hip, you turn, and now I have another arm bar, broken elbow. So as you can see, things that would be natural for people to do could easily put you in deep trouble. In that case, the guard, when my back is on the floor, it's a great position for self-defense, especially for women. Because when the guy thinks of by taking you down and getting in between the legs, he's going to take advantage of you. He doesn't know that he's putting himself in a position the most grapplers will pay $1,000 not to get in. They'll be like, no, I don't want to go in there. How much? I'll pay for it. Just don't put me inside the guard, because there's no point for us to go in there. They're going to submit you. It's a black hole. You run away from it. You just don't want to be there. So in that case, for self-defense, for women, jiu-jitsu would be a great thing, because you don't have to be strong. It's about how you move your body around your opponent. You're not really striking unless you get to the position for striking. Okay? Now, we have other positions. We have, for example, I just introduced you the side control. I just introduced you the guard a little bit. And then we have the back itself. When I take somebody's back, for example, we're grappling, and all of a sudden I throw you down and I make it to your back. I'm going to keep both of my feet inside to make sure that if you try to stand up and get me off, it's like a backpack. No matter where you try to go or move, that person will stay attached to you. As a matter of fact, you take my back. So get up. Get the hooks in. Full hooks. Now, place your hand behind your head. Both of them, like you're just chilling. Right there. He got my back. He got the hooks. Look. I can't get this guy off. Right? And if he was trying to choke me, then I would have been done. So as you can see, when I take the guy's back, there's ways that I'm gonna be just like a backpack. And now I'm 170 pounds. I have to move another 170 pounds on my back. It's like I have a little baby gorilla on my back. And I gotta deal with this baby gorilla who wants to choke me as well. So not only I have to move my weight around, I have to do that with extra weight on top of me who wants to choke me. So again, jiu-jitsu guys, they will not try to strike you in the beginning. You can slap, you can punch, you can kick, they take it, they come in, they take you down. They rush you, they take a dominant position. And then, for example, one of my favorite positions when people try to strike or self-defense situation, I mount my opponents. I'm here, I mount them, and now as soon as I get on top, and I think that I'm gonna hit, he defends a little bit, and all I do is just I grab an arm, I cross his center line of his body, it goes around his own neck, and I go from under the head, and I hold his arm, look. Now he just wrapped his arm around him. Alex, defend the punches. Yes. So when he defends the head, I'll go with my elbow, boom, to the rib. When I get him on the rib, the hand comes down, and then you catch him in the head. Okay, we're not gonna strike. I forgot. I'm a jiu-jitsu guy, so I do the gift wrap, and all I have to do is to unwrap his arm, turn with it, and once my leg goes over the head, now I have an arm. So as you can see, the striking part, only if it's necessary. If like it happens to me where I was in a self-defense case, where someone, the person actually knew a little bit of jiu-jitsu, took my back, put a full rear naked choke. Somehow, luckily enough, I was able to get out, get the guy, and then choke him 4 times unconscious until the police was able to come back. Now think for yourself, who would say that you're gonna go out and find someone who does Kung Fu and does exactly the techniques you do, and then he comes from behind and starts attacking? I never thought of that. I come from Brazil. I'm like, if I never got robbed in Brazil, it will never happen. Well, guess what? They saw the little guy walking by and they came in, and then at that time was actually, it was the best day of my life as a martial artist because it was insane. It was me against 2 guys plus one on the corner watching. I had to fight these 2 guys, and I never thought in my life that something like this would happen. And the reason why I say it's one of the most beautiful days of my life was because the second everything was happening, I could hear my teacher's voice guiding me through the match as if, okay, when the guy takes your back and he's gonna choke you, defend the neck, hold the wrist. Now you're gonna grab his head and pull his head a little bit to the side just until you can punch him. So literally, I could hear my teacher's coaching throughout the whole thing. Afterwards, when everything happened and the guy got arrested and I went home, I started thinking to myself, how was I able to not truly be afraid? I was afraid. It was a situation of someone attacking me. It never happened to me before. I was afraid. But my fear was overridden by my technique, by the fact that I've been trained my whole life that when someone grabs your neck, step number 1, step number 2, step number 3, that's what I trained for. But I didn't know that it was gonna happen so beautifully as it did. So for me, it was like the best example that, okay, my teacher did a great job. And I was the first guy that I called him afterwards. I was like, man, I just had a street fight right now, 2 guys jumping in, I did this and that. And again, I followed the technique. While people were punching me and kicking me, my mind went off the danger, and I fully focused only on what are the things that I need to do on this specific position that I found myself now. And that's when I go back into all my jiu-jitsu classes. There's a technique when someone holds your head on a headlock for an instant. Let's say the fight gets close, too close, and this guy comes in, holds your head, and now he wants to punch you. The first thing you gotta do is defend your neck. Can't choke him too well. Now, when I try to punch him, watch his hand, how it's gonna go under my arm and then hold it. Now I can't punch him. He raises his head, he takes his head out of there, and then, look, now he has a lot to break my arm. In case my opponent holds my head over there, all I gotta do at this point is go right under the legs. Drop the guy, and now maybe an arm bar. There will be multiple answers for one problem because you never get to face the same problem. It's always something changed. The environment, the person moves differently. So at this point, all we did was, all right, what's the first step of jiu-jitsu? Well, they take you down. They wear the uniform or without the uniform, judo and wrestling. Those are the two main arts that we start with. We learn wrestling and judo. We modify it to adapt to submissions, and then we move on. Take the guy down. I took the guy down. What's the next thing that I do? Well, get to a position where he can't submit. Get to a position where he can't strike you. And then I get to that position. Maybe the side control or the mounted position as we explained. And after that, what we are programmed to do is to read how the opponent is fighting back. If I'm mounted, of course, I've done this before in the beginning too. If someone who mounts on top of you, you tend to push the person. But when you do that, that's the biggest mistake you can do in jiu-jitsu because now you just extended your arm. For an instance, lay down my legs, head towards them. If I mount my partner, what I do is this. I tend to lean forward, place my chest right on his face, and cover him up so he can breathe. Remember claustrophobic? I used to hate it. Now I apply it to everybody. So now when I mount the guy, I go right over, I cover him, and then when he pushes me, one, and that's an arm bar right there. I really never wanted to suffocate my friend. That's not the point. But I did want to cause him to extend his arm. So I think I want to choke you a little bit, prevent you from breathing. You panic a little bit and you try to push me off. And then when that arm goes straight, then I apply my arm. So if you see, what we try to do is to set you up to make a mistake. We don't want to go hard and try to grab that arm and apply a submission. We know over 2,000 different ways on how to break the human body. So if you defend the first one, I'm not going to fight for it. I have 1,999 left. I have a whole set of moves that I can try. I'm sure you're going to go for one of the 2,000s. I mean, I find people that are immune to certain submissions, but not to all of them. So again, the system runs into 3 basic steps. Understand the art of staying on your feet, of staying balanced, and being able to take someone down as they try to take you down. That's wrestling and judo. The difference, one has the uniform where you learn different techniques, and the other one is without the uniform, which changed the game completely, okay? So 2 different arts just for the first part, to take people down. The second part will be recognizing the positions in which you can fight someone. What are the good positions? Professor, if I fight the guy, where should I go? Okay, I'm gonna give you 4 dominant positions. Get to one of them. And then when you get to one of them, I'm gonna let you know how to submit. So it's very simple. If you see the blueprint of jiu-jitsu is, take the guy down, get a dominant position, and depending how he's acting and fighting back, you pull out a submission. And that's the easy way to go. Now, we get to the third part, the submission part, okay? Now, when we're talking about submissions, it's not just grab the guy's arm and twist it this way and break it that way. That's a lot more than that. We understand the full anatomy of the human being, okay? We understand how many bones are in his foot, how many bones are in his hand, how many bones are in his neck, how many vertebrae are there. How much pressure will a neck take before it snaps? How much would it take for the foot to break, and so on? In this case, see over here, Alex, let's make believe that we're grappling and I have a chance to come right behind my opponent and choke him. As we spoke before, we went through the part of taking someone down. Now we're going through the part of getting a dominant position, such as the back. I take my partner's back. This is a dominant position. He can strike, he can submit me, he can basically do anything. I'm the dominant guy. But then, after I get my dominant position, the last part will be submitting the guy. So I'm gonna show you guys, for example, I wanna choke my partner. How do I choke? Well, you're gonna see this a lot. The arm across, he grabs the bicep, and he pulls back, okay? You just broke every rule of grappling right now when you do this. We're gonna kill your friend. And let me break it down why. Because that's how they do in the movies. And since these people don't know much about fighting, they just wrap an arm around and hurts the person, right? Why? Because we have the trachea on front of his neck. Trachea is made of 21 cartilage rings. It just makes a little path, a little hole for you to breathe, to drink water, and so on. It's not made to take hit, okay? So if I place my radius bone, the top bone on my forearm, which is sharp like a blade, and I placed it on his trachea, I grab my bicep and I pull back, I will kill this guy. Instead, unlike the first one where I attack the front, the second way of choking, the right way of choking will be equal pressure to the side of his neck, to the carotid artery. When I do that, I place my elbow lined up with his chin. Look at that. That means that the V is perfectly around on the neck. So when I place the V of my arm, where the elbow goes right around on his neck, look at that. All I gotta do is squeeze sideways, and he taps. Unlike when I come into the trachea, pull back, and now you either kill or hurt this guy. So when I'm choking my opponent, I'm not putting any pressure to the trachea whatsoever. I'm actually putting very light pressure to the side of his neck, to the carotid artery. And by any chance, when you're dealing with the neck, we never squeeze too hard. A little bit of pressure, it will be more than enough to actually tap this guy. Now, there's many aspects of jiu-jitsu. For example, what about if you fall into a really bad position? Well, jiu-jitsu not only looks at the positions in which we are dominant, but we try to study every possible way in which someone can position efficiently on me, and we try to study every possible way on how to escape all the moves that we know how to submit. So we take a look on both sides of the coin. How do I attack and how do I defend? So after breaking it down, what jiu-jitsu is, for stand-up fighters, right? For example, I at one point said, man, I love jiu-jitsu, but you know what? Jiu-jitsu, just Brazilian jiu-jitsu is not enough. One style is never enough. So what did I do? I started doing wrestling. I started doing Thai boxing. I started doing stand-up. And afterwards, I started feeling way more confident on the way I move and the way I fight. Like before, when I just had jiu-jitsu, I was very limited. If the match goes to the floor, okay, I can probably hang with this guy. But what about if it doesn't? So then this guy can probably knock me out. So what did I have to do? I had to explore a little bit outside of my field in order to become well-rounded. I have to at least be able to handle a fight standing until I can take my partner down. So for every stand-up fighter that never done jiu-jitsu, the only thing that I have to say is this: give it a shot, try it, and you're gonna fall in love just like the rest of us. It will become just one more tool to make whatever you're already doing even better. It's just like when we do jiu-jitsu, we learn kung fu, we learn karate, we learn boxing, we learn Muay Thai. It only makes the jiu-jitsu guy better. And so it's the same way for you guys. So as a stand-up fighter, Professor Magno never took grappling classes. If someone that grapples try to come after me, well, it's very hard to say, how would you know that this guy is a grappler? It comes in all forms and shapes. So whenever you face any situation, the best thing to do is to expect that this guy knows everything about grappling. And I'm gonna play by the rule and not give him anything. For an instance, it's not the game. I would suggest you guys not to learn how to defend against jiu-jitsu fighters. I would say get into the game, become a jiu-jitsu fighter. To fight someone in their art, you need to use their own art, because you can only run away to a certain point. If I'm standing with someone and this guy start getting a little closer, I'm gonna try to fake punches, I'm gonna fake some kicks, I'm gonna try to kick this guy back. Why? He's a close distance fighter. Now, I need to know a few skills. Let's get a little closer over here. For example, if I'm standing over here in slow motion, my partner's gonna go for my legs. Watch the hand going, watch my hand going right inside his arms. And from that point on, I just kick my legs back, I sprawl. And the next thing I know, I switch those grips right around his neck. And I come around, sit. And the next thing you know, I just choke him with a guillotine. Due to him going for a double leg, I was able to stop him with a sprawl. And then I was able to switch the grip on the diving position. So as you can see, in order to avoid a jiu-jitsu dive, you just gotta have very good standing, like wrestlers. Wrestlers are a pain in the neck to take them down. They're the guys that make us work on our takedown because they're so good at it. So it can get to a point where a wrestler can totally avoid going to the ground and tire you out the entire match. So when a jiu-jitsu guy comes in, what you want to do is kick those legs away, sprawl away from him. If it's a striking situation, keep him down and start striking and distance. The same way that a jiu-jitsu guy will come in and stay very, very far away from you, where your punches and kicks cannot do anything to him because he's too far. And then when you try to get a little close, he goes for a double leg. Why? He doesn't want to stand with you. That's your game. I'm not going to play your game. I'll bring you to my playground where you're not very comfortable. Think about it. When crocodiles grab their prey, what do? They bring it to the water where they're not familiar with it, right? That's exactly what we do. We take you from standing, we bring you to the floor. So the whole thing would be understanding some good wrestling, some good ways of avoiding people taking you to the ground. But like I said again, it's an amazing game. I suggest you to get into it and understand more about it, research more about it, because you're gonna see what it does to a stand-up fighter once he has no fear of going to the ground. You just become like, hey man, let's do it. It's my game too. Any questions so far for any of these guys?
Do you guys have any questions? Let's take a look here. It looks like they wrote some stuff here.
What's the time so far?
We got about 15 minutes. Good. All right. Some people wrote gift wrap.
Yeah.
I hope you guys noticed he was talking about the match leads, which is what I yell at you guys at to do all the time. Where you're going right leg to right leg, left leg to left leg. I'm always trying to
the
get
similarity,
them same,
right? On
yeah.
the styles. Yeah.
Cool. Cool. Yeah. Okay, Mark Fitzpatrick. Hello, Professor. For single or double leg, how do you decide which one you're going to go for? Or is it your opponent's stance, movement, or something else?
Very good. All the above. All the above. It's how your opponent moves around. And for an instance, sometimes you might look at the guy, the positioning is perfect for your double leg. And you shoot in, and when you get a double leg, he does something with his hip, and he turns around a little bit, and it completely changed the angle for your double. Now, you're forced to be flexible and let go, abort mission from the first one, and switch to a second one. I'll give you an example. As I came in to shoot in, a little bit forward, I got into the leg, right? So my partner sprawls. Look, when he sprawls, I come right under, I throw him, and now I take his back. So as you can see, there's gonna be how you take down and how you avoid the takedown. So in that case, I may come in with the perfect angle to shoot for my double, but I always gotta be flexible enough to change things around, because sometimes when you're shooting, one little movement, a delay, a second delay on your movement, on your timing, can change things around. And you can't be just one-dimensional. At that point, that's when you go, okay, if it doesn't work, I pop to the side. If it doesn't work, I grab this leg. If it doesn't work, you always have plan A, B, C, and D ready to pull the trigger. Awesome.
Cool. Another question here. Hello, Professor Gama. What's the difference about BJJ and Luta Libre? I think.
All right. That's a very good question. There's a lot of debates on that, because people say that the Luta Libre guys were the jiu-jitsu guys who used to train jiu-jitsu, kind of gave up on the jiu-jitsu team and went on to do just no gi, no uniform. And they became the Vale Tudo fighters, the Luta Libre fighters.
Luta Libre means free fight, right?
Free fighting. You can do anything. Right? Yes. Yeah. Basically, it means no holds barred. Hair pulling, everything. That won't happen to me, but so Luta Libre is basically the stand-up fighter guys who got very good knowledge of jiu-jitsu too, that start coming back and fighting jiu-jitsu guys. Amazing fighters. Made a huge difference for jiu-jitsu guys. Made us grow and evolve big time.
Awesome. Yeah, guys, any more questions here? Okay. Hold, there was another question. I think I missed one. What should women do if the mounting opponent strikes instead of chokes? So you mean the opponent is in the guard or he's in the mount? Because normally for women, it's in a guard situation. I assume you mean
Yes.
striking, right?
It could happen that the guy will mount the women.
Yeah, guard.
Punch.
So what happens if they're in the guard and they're striking?
Okay, so when we play guard, we already know two ways of playing guard: for jiu-jitsu sport and for self-defense. For self-defense, as I'm here, watch this. When I place my hand up, you punch my hand, okay? I just brought a knee with my legs. So when the guy's here and I feel that he's gonna strike or do anything, I just pull him. Look at how his arm went across. And now I have a nasty choke on this guy. A kata right from there. So if you can see, my legs moving back and forth, and when it comes to self-defense, you switch the mode from sport jiu-jitsu to self-defense, where now you apply your technique with striking allowed. So in that case, if I know it's a self-defense situation, I have him in my guard, I would never give you the space. I would start grabbing your arms, your head, and keep you close to me so there's no striking. And that's a basic rule of playing guard when it comes to self-defense. Make sense? Keeping the distance with your opponent. Eliminating the space for striking.
Awesome. That's what he said. Awesome. Let's see here.
Thank you.
Got it. All right. Did it get what? Oh, is it better then to not match leads against a grappler? So if you know, let's say if you're a striker and you're fighting a grappler, then do you want to keep unmatched leads to make it harder for the grappler to grapple you?
All right, that's a very good question. I do that, all right? And let me explain to you what happens. So let's say I'm standing right leg forward, and I see this guy preparing to shoot. I'm constantly change, I fake, I come back. But if I'm stationary, this guy's gonna come. So at first, I'm here, I change, I move around, I'll quickly move grab your legs, I come back. I'm never in one stance where you can come in and grab me. It's not about my stance, if it's this way, matching his, or not matching, that's gonna prevent them from taking me down. It's how I don't stand still on the same base for him to, so I'm constantly moving. So if you're constantly moving, it becomes hard for the guy to come in and start hitting. So you're moving once and you switch, you fake, you're gonna punch, you switch, and now the guy has to be switching with you, preparing. You're unpredictable, your stands are unpredictable. Therefore, I don't know exactly when to shoot in.
Got it. Like basically not staying in the same place. Does that sound familiar?
Moving. A stationary fighter is a sitting duck, basically.
Right. Another question, what is a jiu-jitsu fighter's option against a stance with no lead leg? So for example, if someone has more of a parallel stance or something like that.
Okay, we have to adapt, and you have to understand one thing. Every time you close a door, you're gonna open a window. It's just how things are. So let's say I'm here, I'm trying to fight this guy, stay here, and his base is wide, okay? So now, I'm not gonna go in the traditional way, where I go under and I try to grab the legs. Now, I have a different entrance, where I take some attacks and I go under, and now I just wrap myself around his leg, where I can dislocate his heel. Now, the stand-up fighter cannot stand up anymore because he has a broken foot. This is a perfect time that I come in and I start applying my grappling techniques. So, basically, you will learn, for the fact that you're doing wrestling and judo, you combine those two main martial arts to take people down. And it doesn't stop growing. They keep making new moves. So it gets to a point where sometimes I get paralysis of analysis. I get to a position like, what takedown am I going to use? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Whoa. The guy's not even there anymore. So you practice a field that you really like and it's sharp and you go for it, because there's too many ways of taking people down. It's so many that I tell you the truth, I don't think we have a number for it. It's basically a known amount of ways of taking people down.
The comments are like amazing. Wow. What you just did there, we're going for the leg.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, that's one of my specialty. We were one of the first few modern jiu-jitsu fighters that actually invested most of their times into leg locks.
That's a subject that we're gonna be talking about very soon too. How people in martial arts, in jiu-jitsu, hated leg locks. I remember we tapping people in tournaments and people were like, boo. We're like, it's submission, it taps, it works, you know? So it's like you're knocking someone out with a 1-inch punch and then everybody boos you. I said, it's just 1-inch punch. It's like, what? You're kidding me, it works. So that's another story about leg locks and how amazing this side of submission is. It's a completely different world. When you talk about jiu-jitsu guys and jiu-jitsu guys that don't know leg lock, oh my God. It's a huge difference in grappling itself.
Yeah, and I get last thing maybe they might be interested in, because we were just talking about leg locks. The common thing, which even comes from jiu-jitsu people, not necessarily from kung fu people, is, oh, if you try to go for a leg lock, I'm going to be able to punch you, I'm going to be able to kick you because you're exposing. Maybe I want them to see how actually difficult it would be. Yeah,
extremely difficult. Yeah. So let's say, look, for an instance, if I get into a clinch with my partner, let me see if I can turn it there. Look, my left leg is going to go in between his base, in between his leg. I step, I turn around, and now I got his whole leg fully extended, okay? Now, maybe he can still kick me. Maybe he can, yeah, he still can punch me, right? That's fine. If he takes that route of punching me, I'm going to remember that when I go for the knee bar. So if he wants to punch, that's perfectly fine. He's going to get a broken knee. So if you see, look at how far. If you talk about striking, you have to be smart about it. I need to be in a position where my striking will be efficient. Because if you try to strike the guy on a position that it's not good for you, you're just instigating the guy to punch you. I had a position, lay down, where this kid, kind of a good friend of mine from high school, I remember we were like talking about fighting, and they're boxers, and I was like, okay, so let's do a little fighting and see who has the best style. I mounted the guy right away. I did the gift wrap. So I go 1, 2, and now I have the gift wrap. I'm ready to punch this guy. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, ah, man, it's not, maybe I shouldn't punch the guy, you know, like, he doesn't know jiu-jitsu. And while I'm talking, this guy comes in and goes, pow! And I'm like, oh yeah, boom, boom, boom. And I caught him like a few times. So it's like this. You can get to positions if you want to strike and become really efficient. Unlike trying to strike the guy from a position where you're not efficient. So we do strike, is that we strike at the right time. That's not our main goal. I'll get you down, I'll put you in a position where you can defend, and then the striking comes. Good answer to the question.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, cool. I think here's the last question. Hello, Professor Gama. As a BJJ practitioner, what does attacking your opponent's center mean to you? Well, this is something we do in Wing Chun. Like, we're always going toward the center. And I guess he's wondering if there are any parallels to Jiu-Jitsu on attacking the center, controlling the center.
We do have the same, I can see the pattern there, because we have center line, where I cross my opponent's arm across the center line. There's the hip line, there's the knee line. In Jiu-Jitsu, when I use these terminologies, if you don't know Jiu-Jitsu, it sounds like a different language. The same way when you guys talk about your terminologies, I would be lost.
Right.
In Jiu-Jitsu, we have the same things. Knee line, you have to pass that knee line in order to stabilize. If you haven't passed the knee line and the hip line, you can never stabilize. When you're standing with your opponent, your hips should never be above his hips, because that's when you get exposed to leg locks. And that's what's happening basically right now. It's a very simple rule of not getting submitted on leg locks that most people, black belts, never thought about it. Your hip being above somebody's hips. Just like the rules of lifting. When you do leg presses, the weight is usually right above your hips and not too far away.
Right.
So we have those same little patterns, knee line, hip line, center line as well.
Awesome. Cool. Well, that's our time for today. I hope you guys enjoyed that. And also, there's a lot of information. It was really awesome. I'm super thankful to Professor Magno for coming in today. And also, don't forget that the recording of this class will be up for you guys on Friday, so you can always revisit it and watch it as much as you want. So hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye. Everyone's thinking. Cool. Bye-bye.